huge invitations for us to just give up everything that we're doing, to stop everything that's happening on the outside, and to sit with our children and to connect.
It really warms my heart to welcome Roma Khetarpal this evening on Elevate with Anupa. Roma is a parentologist, an author, and an educator, but I love her dearly, and it really is a very special moment to bring her on today and discuss everything parentology. And the one thing I will share with you, ironically, is the day I met Roma was the day she started on this parenting journey, when she was pregnant and it was her baby shower. So welcome, Roma, welcome, Didi, to the Elevate with Anupa.
Thank you so much, Anupa. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm super proud of the work that you're doing. And you're right, the intersection of our knowing each other and our journey started, so many years ago when I was just going to become a parent and you were a little young teenager. So I'm so grateful that we get to cross paths again and meet professionally, although it's never so professional that it's not personal, right?
Yes, between us, I don't think it'd be too professional. I would love for you to share with us the journey you've been through, and how did you become this parentologist and an expert on parenting, and then we'll go into. I would love to then follow on into your book, which I absolutely love, and it's my Bible that I refer to. But let's talk about this journey of yours. It's just so beautiful.
Sure, thank you so much. As I said, the journey starts right at the moment of becoming a parent. That first moment that you hold your child, there starts a new journey of self-discovery, of understanding who you are. The only thing that we really need to do at that point is to dial in, and not really outwards, but inwards, because parenting is a journey of the heart. It's a journey of the soul. Our children come to us in these perfect moments in time, truly by a design much grander than our own planning. And in these moments of connection, we find that growth, we get tugged by our kids. So my journey started with the children tugging me, asking me questions as they got older, and immediately realizing that this is not my life. This is their life that I am supporting. This is their life that I'm helping move forward, and that the teach and learn process is equal. I will be learning as much from them as they're going to learn from me. And this dawned on me pretty early on, when the children were, Natasha was maybe 5 and my son was about 2, and their differences were so vast that I knew I had to mold as a parent. What worked with Natasha was not working for Navin. We came into parenting with the whole authoritarian mindset, where our parents said a certain thing, they gave us direction, and we followed. I realized quickly that that was not going to be the case with this generation. And I welcomed it, honestly, because it gave me a run for my money. Those questions of, why do we do this? Why don't we do it this way? Simple things, with my mom-in-law doing her prayers and lighting the candle. The big question of, why do we light a candle? What does the candle mean? And why do I have to do it this way? Why do I have to take my shoes off before I enter the temple? When I went to church, we didn't need to take our shoes off. So it was these little tugs and nudges that inspired me to go after these answers. And when I researched these answers for my children, I realized that I learned right along. And then this really became the foundation of our relationship together as my children got older. And I'll tell you, by no means does it minimize the challenges that the kids are going to go through, but it definitely makes you more aware, more awake in the journey that you're on, in the connection with your children.
Yes, I was just going to say, I think it gets you more connected. You probably don't always get it right, but it's the journey of connection that's really important. I loved what you said, that this is their life, it's not my life, because we do tend to forget that. I mean, I had just to give you a simple example, which you've probably heard over and over again. in the UK right now, our children have started to go back into school. So some of them are on their first few days. So for us, it's day 4, and it's all new. The restrictions that are in place, but also the excitement of the children going back to school, new teachers, new classrooms, new subjects because they're moving on, and they come home with that happiness and that overwhelm, and then there's a meltdown and you don't know what caused that meltdown. And as a parent, you're just like, wow, this wasn't what I was expecting today. I wanted to sit and connect with them, but they're having this massive meltdown. And that's the time to remember it's their life. It's not my life, which I did not think about at that time. So that was a great, great sentence. So that statement that's going to stay with me.
Yes, and really, Anupa, moments of breakdown are bigger moments of connection than the celebration times. They're really huge invitations for us to just give up everything that we're doing, to stop everything that's happening on the outside, and to sit with our children and to connect with them. And connection, people say, like, what does connect mean? Are we having a conversation? Are we holding them? And it really, connection means to allow yourself to be in flow in this space with the child. And if that means holding them, then you hold them. If that means holding their hand, then that's what you do. If that means having a conversation, that's great. If that means doing nothing and allowing them and just holding space for them while they go through their upset, their tantrum, their emotional outburst, whatever that might be, these are all ways to connect with our children.
That's very profound because at a time like this, what the world has been going through, the adult, the parent, needs to have the space to hold the space.
Yes.
So, what tips do you have for the parents to make available the space that they need to be holding for their children? Because I know I've struggled with it. It's been 6 months, kids have been with me, and from a parent's perspective, you always think you're doing the best for your child. We're not sure how that communicates through all the way to the child. And they're young. I've got 8-year-olds, so mine are still quite young. But what would you suggest or advise us parents who are trying to juggle all of this all at the same time, the change in our lives plus the change in their life, and hold that space?
Yeah. So that's a fabulous question. How do you hold space when you yourself need space, right? When you're short of space yourself. And that is all of life. This is where disconnection happens, is when we're not able to hold space for our children because of the busyness, the emotional chaos, the busy mind, as I like to call it, the dizzy, busy mind. How can we be pleasant and present, right, with our children in moments of chaos? So the very first step, as you've heard a million times before, is to put your own oxygen mask on, right? Just like you would do in a flight. So taking that breath backwards, taking that step backwards and breathing, really focusing on your breath, having an anchor to go to. And this is what we do in meditation too, is have an anchor. Have one specific anchor that's easy for you to access in times of chaos. And it could be the attention right here in the inhale, exhale. It could be the attention in the expansion, contraction in the lungs area, in your heart space. It could be the rising and falling of the abdomen, the belly area. Whatever you come to intuitively, using that anchor then to silence inwards, just following your breath and just dialing into your breath can bring us into the present moment. The issue with disconnection, why do we call it disconnection? We call it disconnection because no one is in the present moment. That's where the disconnection comes. Now, if you look at the child and what they're doing, they're more in the present moment than we are because they're having an outburst. They're having some sort of a meltdown, as you said, as your son was having when he came home. And when they're having a meltdown, our first instinct is to resolve, is to see, how can I fix this? But really, the best way to fix anything is to find that space within yourself to allow the child to go through that outburst, So, mindfulness exercises and mindfulness meditation, any kind of meditation, mindfulness breath work, these are really great tools to access that inner quiet so that you can hold space for your child in the moment. I know you meditate and I know you have so many qualifications behind you also. So in that, being in that meditative state while you're awake, while
Yes.
you while you're witnessing the child's tantrum, that's what we need to do as parents. And using our anchors, our breath, some parents like to just cross their fingers. That's a, holding your emotions. Just take a deep breath, cross your fingers, whatever it might be, whatever your anchor is, that can help you dial inward and go back to breath. That'll really help slow down the process and create that space. Once you take a deep breath, if you notice, what happens is, we broaden our shoulders, we straighten our spine, then the energetic movement within our body becomes more in sync. And this is
Yes.
what we want, all in sync, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You said it all in sync. But yes, that's absolutely true, because that is the only real, the main most important tool you could have is that access to meditating, to then access the space within. At the same time, would you also advise that the child does some breathing?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. If we do it ourselves, then there's nothing to teach the child. This is the beauty of parenting. And if we can wrap our head around this, we have all these magnanimous efforts that we want to make to teach the child, to bring them up in a certain way, to have them do yoga, have them do meditation, have them do breath work. We need to do nothing. If we do it ourselves, they're just going to see it. And it's going to become an innate part of who they are. So it all starts and ends with us, knowing that if we can manage ourselves, then through neuroplasticity, our children through osmosis, by breathing the air that we are programming, right? Because the air that we raise our children in, the environment that we raise our children in, the air actually holds data. Right? It actually holds frequencies. We know that today with the advent of technology and back in the day with remotes and satellites and TVs, right? We know this because we've created these gadgets. We know that the air carries information. So accessing that wisdom, which we have anyways, accessing that wisdom in the moment, that is the key, is not to let that moment pass without saying, wow, what can I do with this? How can I bring myself to presence? How can I be mindful myself? And the definition of mindfulness is really just, being in the present moment experience, paying attention to the present moment experience with curiosity and with an openness and a willingness to be with what is. So if the child is crying, then the child is crying.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
I
And
continue
yeah.
to just be and just hold this internal space of love and just, stroke them on their back and tell them it's okay, it's all right, because we want to get an answer from them before they're even done exiting the emotion, right? The emotion is emotion, energy in motion. Every
Yeah.
emotion has a frequency, and that frequency is vibrating through their body. So if we can just give it time to exit, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor talks about the 90-second emotion rule. And there's research behind this. It takes 90 seconds for the chemical surge within our body from an emotion to go through our system and to flush out. So if for those 90 seconds, if we can just buy ourselves 90 seconds of not asking why, what happened, who said what, why are you crying is the first thing we ask. Why are you crying? What happened? We think the worst happened. Instead, when we start crying, just stroking their back and saying, oh, it's okay, my love. It's all right. It's okay. Let it out. I'm here for you. And just buying yourself 90 seconds while you breathe yourself. There's full-on presence right there in those 90 seconds.
That's beautiful. That is, as beautifully as you've explained it, it seems so simple, really. It's like, yes, it sounds like there's a lot of things I need to think about, but if we just applied ourselves, it's accessible to us. We just need to take that time and understand that also that outburst or that event is happening because they're also unable to express themselves. And
Exactly.
it's, and as you said, don't question it, just be there.
Mhm. And there is a time for the questioning, right? There is
Yeah.
a time right after the child calms down, asking them, "Are you ready to talk about it?" And then they're going to spill their guts, right? At that moment, what they need is not an added layer of Q&A. At that time, what they need is compassion. They need your kindness. They need your touch. They need your holding. They need sensory connection. And to just give them that quiet sensory connection helps them, teaches them then in the future to understand that emotions have to be played out through our bodies. Our bodies hold the frequencies of emotions, right? We have to process emotion through this body. This emotion cannot be processed intellectually. It's not a mind job. And we make it a mind job. We parent from our headspace. But truly, it's all about emotions, and processing of emotions happens through the physical body. So if we can just allow that a little bit of time, then there's lots of room for conversation, because of course we want to know what happened. It could have been something serious at school. It could have been something that warrants a phone call at school, to the authorities, to the teachers. It could be any of the above. And this is not about being ignorant. It's about in the moment allowing space for the energy, the frequency to exit, and then sitting with them, because then you will have a more productive conversation anyways. They're not going to be able to answer you, because what we do is we hold the child and say, "What's wrong? Tell me what's going on. You want some water? Here's some water. What's wrong? Breathe, breathe, breathe. What's wrong? First tell me what's going on. What happened? Stop crying." These are the sort of things that we say. And they're pointless. They're pointless. They're not going to get you anywhere. So
And
just
it's
allowing
overwhelming
yourself
them
and
with
the
all these
children.
questions as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and it's hard because as parents, we're dialed into the frequency of our children. We're vibrationally connected before. Our nonverbal communication, our vibrational connection is our first form of communication. If you think about when our children were babies, right? When they were little, there were no words in play. We picked up everything through our senses. It was complete, full-on sensory connection from our eyes to their eyes, the cajoling and the sounds, and from our touch to their touch, and they can smell us. We can smell them. We can tell their expressions, how their eyes squint. They can hear our voices, right? We're not communicating in words. This is a sensory connection, a nonverbal form of communication. So we're very dialed in intuitively. As parents, we're dialed into that, especially mothers, because you have the added layer of the 9 months of incubation, right? So this is the process. The vibrational connection between parents and children is very strong. And so when children get activated, we start to feel. We start to feel what they're feeling. We're picking up on their angst, and we respond with our own angst to that. So the step would be to, as you pick up on their angst, to take a step backwards and let them, observe them, be a witness, allow them to go through their tantrum, their emotional outburst, and then step in with the usual Q&As that we do.
That's so important. I think I need to listen to this over and over again to get it through. That's lovely. That's really lovely, Didi.
Practice, right? This is a muscle. Mindfulness and presence is a muscle you're building. It's just like when you go to the gym to work out, and you're not going to get, these huge biceps and whatever your goals might be, or the weight loss or the increase of energy. It doesn't happen right away. We all know that, but we're patient with that. We go again and again and again because we know that with repetition, with X amount of time and discipline, that this is going to happen. It's similarly with mindfulness, with presence. We're building the muscle, right? That building the muscle of the mind drifting, and then us bringing the mind back into our body and aligning it with our breath so that we stay present. It is the mind's job to drift. It's the mind's job. We can't stop it, but mindfulness muscles are built when the bringing back. That right there is the effort that we need to make, and it's practice. I'm not going to tell you it's going to happen in a heartbeat. You might, for the first couple of months, I'm sorry, first couple of times, once you set the intention, you might catch yourself afterwards and go, oh, I should have done that. And that's okay. That's okay. That's when you run back and listen again if you need to, or just do a little practice. And before you know it, you'll catch it in the moment. And once you catch it in the moment, the results, the fruits of that are like ridiculously soul satisfying and gratifying, where you'll then feel like, oh, I did it. Right? And then you'll do it again and you'll do it again. And then it becomes second nature. It becomes a shared vibration with your child.
I'm just visualizing this beautiful connection between parent and child just by utilizing these tips. You know, just once we've got it to down, it's just smooth sailing from there, would appear. You know, then the connection, then you know that you need to be in the present, and your child is there doing what the child needs to be doing, as they rightfully should be, no matter what age they're in. But it's using these tools and these tips and knowing that you're just there, and it just keeps coming back and it keeps coming back, and it just seems like such a beautiful fusion between parent and child, just by practicing that.
It really is. It's a meditative experience. And now remember, you're going to have human moments. You will have moments of outbursts. And once you practice this form of presence, and in my book, I have a tool called Take 5, which take 5 every single day with your child to do nothing. Nothing on the agenda, no discussions about school or technology, nothing pre-planned, but just sitting there, being there with them, and allowing whatever shows up to show up. Little kids, of course, in conversation, 1,000 things will show up. And if you're fortunate enough to have a backyard or to be in connection with nature in those 5 minutes, then that is golden. It is so golden, because nature has a way of calming us. It has a way of deflating our egos and bringing us into presence. And so taking those 5 minutes a day is great practice for us to hold that space together with our child. And you can even call it Take 5. Say, come on, we're going to take 5. And what happens within a course of a week or 10 days, you'll realize that when you have that outburst, you have your little teacher right in front of you. And I hear this all the time. Mom, you need to take 5. Mom, take 5. Dad, well, wow, dad needs to take 5 right now. Because now you're giving them the verbiage, you're giving them the language, and you're giving them the experience. The verbiage and the language is nothing without the experience of it.
That's true. I think I'm going to start putting some posters around the house just for myself saying, Mama, take 5. Yeah. Just for me to get used to it. And then perhaps the kids will then start reading it and saying it to me, Mama, take 5, breathe.
Take 5 with them every day. Take 5 minutes a day with yourself to do nothing, and take 5 minutes with your children a day. Tell them we're going to take 5 every day to do nothing. And with you, it's a little bit of, there's a layer of challenge because of the twins, right? So you'll have to do it separately with them. Say, now it's your time and now it's your time, so that the boys come in separately into this, so they get their own special time with you. And you do it as often as you can.
Yeah, that's lovely. I will open it up. We have a very nice audience right now, and I would like to open it up to questions in a few minutes. But I would love to address your book, The Perfect Parent. And it's today I was skimming through it, and I was like, oh, you know what? I remember all of this. And I remember that from our conversations, because, okay, I'm fortunate to have you and to call you up or message you and say, okay, I can't handle the situation. And you have a very spiritual grounding effect on a parent that is in a having their own meltdown. But your book addresses all of this. So anyone that would pick up your book would learn these 5 tools that you have in there that are so potent, and the way you have phrased them. And then at the end, you've got your toolbox with the affirmations and the pointers to remember. And I think it's a book that all parents of all age groups should refer to. And I mean, am I fair in saying all age groups? I mean, I'm, yes, on the younger end of some of the audience here, in terms of my children are at the younger end, but you've got the teenagers, and then you've got the later teens, you've got the early teens, you've got the late teens, and then you've got the university kids, and then you've got the ones that have just graduated who are looking for jobs. And this is speaking normally outside of the pandemic, because within the pandemic, again, there's all other issues that they're dealing with. But would you say it's fair that parents with children of all ages and stages should refer to these 5 beautiful tools?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's timeless, it's ageless, it's phaseless. So any phase, any stage, any age, these tools are applicable. And mind you, I wrote this book when I turned 50. It was the year that I turned 50 that I wrote this book, and my children were already adults at that time, right? So my reflections in this book, all the stories are through all age groups. When the children were little, to teenagers, to young adults, to adulthood, to independence, to complete independence. So yes, these tools are applicable all the way. And these are really tools of mindfulness, tools of spirituality, tools of self-discovery. So the first one is honorable parenting. I'm going to touch on a couple of them so the audience has an idea. The very first one is honorable parenting. How can we honor ourselves, this role in parenting? And then how can we honor our children and their independence, their separateness from us, right? It's really important for us to accept and respect that they're not supposed to do everything that we are asking them to do. They're not supposed to play out a life that we designed for them. And neither are we supposed to play out a life that somebody else expects of us or our children expect of us. So understanding this role of accepting and respecting yourself as you are, and not beating yourself up on the little mistakes that you make. Because if you don't make those mistakes, you're not going to learn and grow. That is part of the ride. And similarly, the accept and respect with the child, parallel, very much. This teach and learn, this accept and respect, being honorable, is very parallel between the life of a parent and a life of a child. So honoring their emotions and their personalities and their uniqueness, not having them, not enforcing one to be like the other, or one to be like the neighbor, or like the cousin, or whomever it might be that you have a habit of comparing your children to, really observing yourself in that. What message am I sending the child when I do not accept and respect their individuality? I'm sending this message of you're not good enough. And then we take this into adulthood. And once we take this into adulthood, into our relationships, we wonder, why did I feel this way, that I wasn't good enough? Here I am in my 40s and 50s, unlayering, undoing all those feelings, doing affirmations and meditations and reminding myself that I am worthy and I'm amazing. But the damage happened in childhood from the comparison, from the lack of that accepting and respecting by the parents. And so we're in that generation where we're surrounded by wisdom. I mean, wisdom bringing the parenting and honoring yourself and honoring your child, honoring all your relationships. That's the very first ground rule when our children feel something. Because, honoring your child means not just their physicality and their personality, but their emotions. Because you could have 2 children that feel differently about the same issue in the house. But isn't that true of all of us and our siblings? So keeping that in perspective, that you have to honor it regardless. Whatever they're feeling, feelings are not right or wrong. Giving them that space. And then the second one is approachable parenting. How to put yourself in a position so that you can be approachable to your children. And in that take 5 that we just talked about, that is a big tool. To build that trust, to build that connection, to really nurture that space of quiet exchange between parent and child, because that truly is what builds the trust that my parent has the capacity to sit with me when there's nothing to be talked about. So when I'm not feeling well, when I've made a mistake, when something has happened to me, I can easily go to them because they will sit with me. They have the experience of the shared space. And that's what builds that trust between parents and children. So while honorable parenting builds that self-confidence in parenting, approachable parenting builds that trust between parent and child. And then there's sensible parenting, building, connection through senses, which we talked about and we touched upon, using our senses to connect with our children. We forget as they get older that our first language was the sensory connection. So bringing that back, bringing that nonverbal communication back, making the eye contact, and using words that align with growth and goodness. And then, of course, there's reasonable and responsible parenting and enjoyable parenting. Can't go through them all here, but here's a little sprinkle. The reasonable and responsible, for those that have older kids, really teaches you how to reason with children versus arguing, and what's the difference, and how to respond to them instead of reacting, and what's the difference there. And then enjoyable and memorable is just where, how can we reap the fruits of our labor, the effort that we put in, the lifelong effort as parents.
And those are very, very important tips, because it actually takes you from start to end. There's no end in this journey, but to the extreme parts of parenting, from the beginning through the journey. Each tip will connect you that much more with your child. And I think a lot of things that you said in the book are beautiful because it honors the parent as well. There's a lot of parenting suggestions out there that make the parent feel guilty for anything that they've done and said. And your approach is actually a very holistic approach, where there's no guilt involved, but there's one that you always say, dealing with the feeling. And I love that phrase, because that comes to me every time I get a little bit of guilt, or I feel upset that, oh, I should not have disciplined in this way, or I should not have disciplined in this. When you question yourself, that's where your statement, dealing with the feeling, really comes into play for me. And I think I'd love for you to expand on that.
Sure. So dealing with the feeling, 3 steps to that: spot it, say it, okay it. So spot the feeling, anger, frustration, whatever, guilt, as you mentioned, whatever that feeling might be. And this you can do internally with yourself or with your child. So spot that feeling, say it out loud in your mind. If you're doing this with yourself, oh, wow, there rises the guilt again. I see that guilt. And okay it. It's okay to feel guilty. I'm feeling guilty because I yelled at my child when I shouldn't have. I could have been a little calmer. And then being that using forgiveness, being compassionate and kind to yourself. This is the human ride. We are going to have ups and downs. We are going to feel magnitudes of emotions in small proportions and large proportions. This is the ride. This is the human ride. Knowing that and not holding yourself accountable for every single thing, and down talking yourself, and not activating your inner critic, and really doing the opposite, soothing yourself and saying, that's okay, you made a mistake. Because when you realize that you have this inner ability that you can cultivate to forgive yourself and to let things go, then you will come to your child and apologize and say, I'm so sorry, mommy had an outburst. Mom had a hard day today. I'm so sorry about that. And even if you don't give a reason, if you just say, I'm so sorry, I really didn't mean that. Our children are so forgiving. They're so forgiving. They'll grab onto us and they'll wipe our tears and say, it's okay, mom. It's all right. Don't cry, mom. And, they'll hold that space for us. They know intuitively and innately how to do this. Our job then becomes to preserve that natural beauty that they have within them, of holding space, of being kind, of being compassionate. If we can do that with ourselves, then we hold that space for them as an example for their future on how to trot mistakes. So that very first step is spot it, say it, okay it. And now we can take it to the child. Say, for example, your child does not have the vocabulary for what they're feeling. And if they're throwing a fit, you let them go through their emotional outburst. And then once you see you have the opportunity to have the conversation with them and you find out what the issue is, then name the emotion. I see that you're so frustrated. Or I see that you're sad that your brother broke your iPad. Oh, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I would be so sad too. And allowing that frequency to exit from within their body. Then going to the resolve. Look, your brother's saying sorry. He didn't really mean it. It was an accident. Then you can take the child to sanity because you've validated their emotions. Anupa, think about it. If I'm really mad at you because I told you to keep a secret and you went and told everyone, right? Or you went and shared it with someone and it got back to me, and I'm really upset at you and I'm coming towards you to talk to you about it and say, Anupa, and you say to me, Roma, I am so sorry. I get it. I know you're angry with me. I know you're mad at me. And you know what? Completely valid. I get it. What's going to happen? That internal temperature is going to subside. It's going to turn down the volume of the emotion. That's what we want to do with our children. Dealing with the feeling, we spot it, say it, okay it. When our children are little, they don't have the emotional vocabulary. So building their emotional vocabulary, just like we build their verbal vocabulary.
The academic knowledge, yes.
Yeah, building that emotional vocabulary is super important. So as they get older, they can come to you when they're teenagers and say, I'm so frustrated. And so they have words for how they're feeling instead of acting them out by throwing things or using language or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, and it's so nice to hear it in this way as a parent, because it gives you proper perspective of what's going on. I mean, some parents trust their inner voice and they on autopilot, and I find that a lot of them that do deal with their inner voice are doing a beautiful job, because there's just this inner connection that they have with themselves and with their child, and it just flows, and you see how beautifully it flows. And for the ones that do have this little bit of an internal conflict, as we question ourselves, and you said it's more of the society, and that is more of a societal pressure. It's more the pressure coming externally, of did I do the right thing, or did I say the right thing, or has my child performed in the right way, and how am I supposed to react to that? So what you've done is really given it really good perspective to just come down, come down to home base, and evaluate it for what it's worth, and just reconnect to yourself and reconnect to the child. And it's easily done because, as you said, children are forgiving.
Yes. Anupa, it's what you've said is really beautiful, because if we don't know how to speak English, how would we teach our kids the language, right? Similarly, if we don't know how to connect with our inner self, if we don't know how to go inwards, how are we going to teach our children the language of the inside, to listen to themselves, to be intuitive, to let their inner compass guide them when they leave our homes?
Yeah.
So it's important for us to know this language ourselves. If we know this language ourselves of what does my body feel like? What does my inner critic say? What is my inner personality like? What is all this garbage that goes on? How often do I beat myself up? How often do I appreciate myself? If we don't understand ourselves and our internal madness in many cases, then how can we teach our children to manage theirs? Because this is not something that's taught in school. Absolutely not. Yeah.
And it comes down to leading by example. And it's just really, all it is leading by example. It's walking the walk and not talking the talk.
Yes. We haven't been taught this ourselves, right? So there's a learning here. There's a dedication here. There's a devotion here that we need to do for the sake of parenting. It starts out for the sake of parenting, but you realize how wonderful this inner capacity, once we dial into it, is in every relationship. So going inward and understanding, who are we? Who am I? Not just on a global human existence, but who am I? What am I? What does my inner voice sound like? Really doing this inner inquiry, if you will, really helps us connect with ourselves and then connect deeper with our children.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Pick up every bad habit we have.
Yes, exactly. That's why I was saying, oh, it's more about leading by example, because they will pick up our better habits and being conscious of who we are and how we present ourselves as well. Yeah, it's very important. Thank you so much, Roma. But I'd like to privately, you can do so through
Tools of Growth, or you can email me at roma@toolsofgrowth.com. On Instagram, it's roma.Khetarpal. On Twitter, it's Tools of Growth. As you can see, I teeter-totter between the two. On LinkedIn, it's Roma Khetarpal. So yeah, either Roma Khetarpal or Tools of Growth, you'll find me on all the platforms.
And you will see that Roma is very approachable, and she will very, very kindly respond to any queries or questions that you have for her. So if you don't want to bring it out into the open space, it's absolutely fine and respectable. But I would encourage you to pick up the book. No matter how old your child is, it's never too late to begin that connection or reconnect to them. And the tools in this book are really tools for growth for us as parents and for our children. And as Roma said, it is how we present ourselves that matters more than what we say to our children. And that is all in The Perfect Parent, the 5 beautiful, beautiful tools for growth in there. Thank you so much for this, for your time, for your knowledge, for honoring us with this amazing insight and experience you have with parent and child.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Anupa, and thank you all for watching. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you, and thanks for enriching all of us today. Have a lovely day for you in Los Angeles. It's just the beginning of the day, so enjoy the rest of your day. And for everyone listening in the UK, have a lovely evening, and thank you for joining us today.
Anupa, thank you for all the great work that you're doing as well. Thank you.
You know what? You're an inspiration. That's all I can say. You are an inspiration.